Our first diver in the women's 3-meter competition is Mia Paulson, a freshman from Stanford. She had been 8th on 1 meter earlier in the meet.
All the women will do 6 dives. It's a really pretty takeoff. And you can see that the difference between springboard and platform diving is that there is a flexible piece of aluminum that the divers are diving off of, and it's lower than the platforms that they dive in competition from. So it requires a lot of balance and rhythm.
6.5 to 8. Now Cassidy Cook, the Stanford senior, had been the 1 meter champion last year, 2nd on 1 meter this year, 2nd on 3 meter last year.
Cassidy Cook has been the ultimate diver for Stanford. She's a senior, and she's been through so much. 4 surgeries, and at times been out of diving for so long, and has come back for her senior year and would love nothing more than to win this. But she knows she's at a little bit of a disadvantage because her degree of difficulty is down. She had shoulder surgery last summer.
Her scores range between 7 and 8, 47.25. Eloise Boulanger, junior from Montreal, dived for UCLA. She won the other springboard competition earlier in the meet, the 1 meter. As usual, Eloise takes a long time.
Yes, she does. She is such a beautiful diver. She has so much poise and grace and beauty to her diving, and she also has the gymnastic ability. And we've talked about it before, that she takes a long time, and sometimes the judges get a little impatient.
Can that negatively affect her score?
Yes, it can.
7 to 8, 60.75. Mara Iacabo, a senior from Romania, diving for ASU.
Half of the field are freshmen in this competition, and 2 of the women are seniors, Mara being one of them. You just can't say enough about what these swimmers and divers put in when they go to college to participate in their athletic event. It is grueling, and it's a routine that they accept and most of them love, but it is a way of life.
I don't know how tough it is to do athletics and academics at the same time. 57.5 for Iacabo. And now Frida Colgren. The top 3 qualifiers and prelims are freshmen. Colgren and Ashley McCool for ASU, Delaney Schnell for Arizona. First of all, we have Haley Farnsworth of Stanford, a sophomore, so the final 4 underclassmen.
And the sophomore from Stanford was 6th last year in this event, Haley Farnsworth. And she's diving with her teammate Cassidy Cook, the senior from Stanford, in this particular event. It's nice to have a teammate, and there's another one, Mia Paulson. So there's 3 Stanford divers in this 8-diver final.
59.4 for Farnsworth. Her scores ranged from 7 to 8. And now Frida Colgren, the freshman for ASU, was 3rd on the 1 meter earlier in the meet.
1.5 somersault with 2.5 twists. All divers must do some type of twisting dive, and they can choose which one they would do. They want to maximize their degree of difficulty, but do a dive that they know they can do well. And she goes in the water vertically, but with a little bit too much twist. She didn't quite stop the twist before she went in the water. But it's definitely an acceptable dive when you receive sevens.
Her ASU teammate, Ashley McCool, a freshman from Alberta. Next to last diver here in the first round.
Very nice. You can see that before the diver takes off, they are perched to go backwards by standing on the board with about 1/3 to 1/2 of their foot. And that requires a lot of balance, and I've talked about rhythm a little bit, but also strength throughout the ankles and extension through the toes.
Her scores range from 6.5 to 7. 52.65 for McCool. Delaney Schnell, who was 5th on 1 meter, considered one of the best recruits in the country, diving for Samantha Pickens at Arizona.
And Delaney Schnell has beautiful lines. It looks to me like there may be some nerve. She's the top qualifier. She has the privilege of going last in the finals, and she over-rotates, steps back slightly from the end of the board. You want to put your feet right on the end of the board before you leave it to go up in the air to do the dive.
After one round, Eloise Belanger has the lead. And in second place, Haley Farnsworth. Mia Paulson of Stanford, member of the Stanford Diving Club the last few years. From Atherton, California, 3-time high school All-American. First diver in the second round.
I think this girl has a lot of charisma. This woman has a lot of charisma in her diving. She's only a freshman, but you know, when you go to college and you start diving or doing a sport in college, it seems like you want to come out of the blocks like a racehorse in your first couple of meets, but the season is long, so you have to be very patient and try and peak at the end of the season. And sometimes that's a mistake that some of these freshmen can make, but she's doing a good job. 6.5s and 7 to 7.5s on both first and second round dives.
Cassidy Cook, her second dive, looking to improve upon the 47.25 in her first dive.
She'll certainly do that. She had such a low degree of difficulty in round 1. Now there's 7 judges. You mark out the 2 highest and 2 lowest scores. You add up the middle 3 and multiply times the degree of difficulty. In this case, 2.7, as opposed to on her first dive, 2.1. So this will score quite a bit higher than the 47.25 points that she scored in round 1.
56.7 after carding 7s all the way across, except for one 7.5. Eloise Belanger of UCLA, our leader after one dive. Pac-12 Freshman of the Year 2 years ago.
What a gorgeous takeoff. Her toes were right on the end of the board, extended before she went up in the air to spin around 2.5 times. Let's see if we can see her toes on the end. Right there. That's perfect. The diving board is tapered. It's skinnier at the end. And the reason is because it'll allow more flexibility. And if you land on that part of it, it'll catapult you.
61.2 for Belanger. She has the top 2 dives so far in the competition. Mara Ayakabo of ASU.
Very smooth. It's a 3.5 somersault, carries a pretty high degree of difficulty, 2.8. And you've seen some 2.5 somersaults, and this is the first 3.5 that we've taken a look at. And again, it takes good timing, balance, and hopefully you put your toes on the end so that you take advantage of the height that the board has to offer with that spring.
Her scores are between 6.5 and 7.5. Haley Farnsworth of Stanford, last year's Pac-12 Newcomer of the Year, was 6th on 3-meter in 2017.
Haley Farnsworth chooses to do a back 2.5 somersault. She over-rotates somewhat on this. You really have to use your visual references well, spotting either the water or the diving board. Two constants. And you look before you unfold to look back. So you're looking forward towards your toes, and then you unfold and look back for the water.
Frida Karlgren, talented freshman for the Sun Devils from Sweden. Springboard specialist, Euro Juniors in 2016 with 7th on 1-meter, 12th on 3-meter.
Frida has already been in the top 3 on the 1-meter springboard, the lower springboard. So she's a good competitor. Being a freshman and diving in your first conference championship can be a little bit different. There's, a lot of activity and dynamics with the swimming teams here. She's very steady.
6s to 7s across the board, 52.65. Ashley McCool going quickly here.
Pretty height. She really rides the board well. That requires so much patience. The diving board is a very flexible piece of aluminum. She reaches up over her head, but she lets the diving board finish the work. Sort of like a golf swing in a way.
Got a 9 from one judge. Her score is 60. That degree of difficulty relatively low at 2.4. Here's Delaney Schnell, freshman for Arizona. Trained in Tucson the last 3 years.
Oh, what a nice kick out from that tuck position as she unfolds before she goes into the water. So controlled. These are all difficult dives, all of these spinning and twisting dives, but she makes this look so effortless. What a pretty dive, and it'll pay off. She's the top qualifier. Missed her first dive, but certainly came back on her second one.
She gets a 60. In fact, a 70 for Delaney Schnell. And so through 2 rounds, our leader is Eloise Belangi of UCLA. And in second place, Mara Ayakabo of Arizona State, with Ashley McCool in third. Mia Paulson of Stanford in 5th place after 2 dives.
You see that the divers rocking the board a bit before they take off going backwards. Certainly acceptable, no problem there. And they're getting their timing. They're getting their timing, getting a feel for the rhythm, and preparing for that takeoff in a way that's comfortable for them.
Good scores for Mia Paulson, 7.5 across, except for one 6.5. And so she cards a 63. That is her best score so far. 3 dives down, 3 to go for her. Here's Cassidy Cook in 6th place after 2 dives.
Always had the ability to ride the board, stay with it, have that patience. Springboard diving is so difficult because there are so many variables involved. You see this hop hurdle to the end of the board. This came into being something that more women use than men because it allows them to load the board with more force and go up higher.
Eloise Belangi of UCLA, the leader through 2 dives, takes a lot of time, like a golfer standing over a putt for a long time, but it doesn't seem to negatively affect her.
No, and I think she takes longer when she's standing backwards than she does going forwards most of the time. But she's been in first place in these first 2 rounds. This is round 3 of 6. That's a tough dive, a reverse 2.5 in the pike position. Many divers will do it in the tuck position with the knees bent, which carries lower degree of difficulty than this. Legs straight, 3.0 degree of difficulty. I don't believe there are any dives over 3.0 in this competition. No, I don't see any. But that's a nice 3rd round dive. Should keep her right in first place unless something spectacular happens.
Scores range from 7 to 8. 67.5. Mara Ayakabo in 2nd, trailing it by about 5 points entering this round. Score of maybe 73 could move her into 1st.
Well, I don't think she's going to score enough points to go into 1st because that would mean she would need 9s on the dive. And I was talking about the little bit lower degree of difficulty. That's what this one is, 2/10 lower than what Eloise Belangi had.
And she gets 4.5s to 5.5s, gets just a 37.8. And falls behind now by about 35 points. Haley Farnsworth of Stanford in 8th place after 2 dives.
Not too bad. A reverse 2.5 somersault pike. Just needs a little bit more refinement. You see that she chooses to wear a cap. It's certainly up to the diver. There are lots of different reasons why women divers might wear a cap, and their hair has something to do with that. That protects it somewhat.
Or maybe wanting to sport the cardinal colors.
That's right.
49.5 for Farnsworth. Frida Karlgren, the ASU freshman, in 4th place.
And that forward 3.5 somersault could have been very well performed. It was a little too slow rotating. And Frida Karlgren, only a freshman, but has all the stuff to be a Pac12 champion one of these days. She was 3rd on the 1 meter, so we know she's already had success. That 3.5 just a little bit deficient, not quite completing rotations.
Ashley McCool of ASU in 3rd place.
And there's a better 3.5. That one was a little quicker in spinning, the RPMs. Rotating faster, making it a little easier to complete the dive. And kick out with time to stretch and grab the hands before going in the water. Grabbing those hands is important. That helps to minimize the splash.
Good scores, 6.5 to 7.5. Final diver of the 3rd round, Delaney Schnell, the top qualifier, but in 7th place after 2 dives.
Oh, I just love her kickouts. I think when she unfolds out of dives before she enters the water, they're so crisp. They're such straight legs with pointed toes. Now, sometimes the entries aren't always exactly vertical, but again, a freshman at the University of Arizona. That's what I was talking about right there, that kick out before she goes in the water and makes a little more splash than she wants to make.
And Eloise Belangi maintains the lead, and moving into second now, Ashley McCool, the ASU freshman, and in third place is Mia Paulson, the Stanford freshman. There's the leader, Belangi. Mia Paulson in third place, despite being the 8th qualifier. Over rotating on that one.
Like I said, half the field are freshmen here, and they're doing some really good takeoffs. If they put the execution of the dive and the entry into the water with these beautiful takeoffs, this diver is just gorgeous to watch. Very good form. Doesn't quite have the acuity going in the water vertically yet on all of her dives.
Cassidy Cook of Stanford in 5th place after 3 dives. Last year's champion on 1 meter, second on 1 meter this year.
That's a very proficient back 2.5 somersault tuck. Very proficient. You know, I've seen her do harder dives than these, but she has had so many struggles with injuries, and coming back for her senior year is just a miracle that she's even diving.
Was out all last fall. Eloise Belangi, our leader after 3 dives, has been consistent. All her scores in the 60s.
Nice forward 3.5 somersault. You know, she does take a lot of time, but it serves her. It's her way of doing it. And far be it from me to say that she should not do this. I think the judges might have an opinion on whether they would deduct, and they're sitting profile to the side of the diving board.
3 on one side, 4 on the other. 7 judges. Top 2 and bottom 2 scores are dropped. The other 3 added together and multiplied by the degree of difficulty. Mara Ayakabo of ASU in 7th place.
Oh, what a great takeoff. I've said that a number of times throughout this contest, and the takeoffs are just dynamic. They are splendid, way up above the diving board, and that might be because there's some adrenaline going on in this Pac-12 final on 3 meter. But you're not going to get great scores if the last thing that the judges see is not a good entry.
Scores range 4.5 to 5.5 for a 42. Haley Farnsworth of Stanford struggled with her second dive. She's in 8th place right now with 3 dives to go.
Oh, I love that dive. I thought the composure on the end of the board was really very balanced. The stability and the equilibrium that she demonstrates right here. That's one of those reverse spinning and twisting dives, and it takes patience.
Frida Karlgren in 4th place, heading into her 4th dive. About 28 points back. See the judges looking at her from the side angle. The other 4 are on this side where the camera is.
Frida Colgren has so many assets. She's got the beauty and the grace. She looks good when she's in the air doing these dives with beautiful tuck positions. You don't see the knees apart or the feet flattened. She's not getting the 8s and 9s that she may eventually get, but she's got all the right tools to get there.
Ashley McCool, the ASU freshman, in second place, about 18 points behind, heading into this round.
Oh, very pretty back 2.5 somersault. Very nice. And she would need 65 points plus to go ahead.
She's not going to do that, but she's going to gain a lot of ground. She gets within 14 points of Belangi after a good 4th dive for McCool. Delaney Schnell in 6th place after 3 dives.
She's a little shaky on some of these takeoffs. Talked about the patience, timing the rhythm of springboard diving, and I've compared it at times to a golf swing. You know, you can't get ahead of yourself. And there are a lot of similarities. You have to take one dive at a time.
And after 4 rounds, Eloise Belangi of UCLA has the lead. Ashley McCool of ASU is second. Cassidy Cook of Stanford in 3rd. Very close battle for 3rd place. And our standings after 4 rounds, Eloise Belangi of UCLA with the lead. Ashley McCool of ASU second. There's a close battle for 3rd. Cassidy Cook of Stanford is in 3rd place right now. And now in the 3-meter, Mia Paulson of Stanford is in 5th place through 4 dives with 2 dives remaining. Just a freshman.
Four freshmen in this competition. And it speaks well for what's to come in the Pac-12 diving. These women stood up in the preliminaries and got themselves in the top 8. And that's not always easy to do at your first Pac-12 championship. Mia Paulson does a back 1.5 with 1.5 twist. Good dive, and does score the 8s that she might like to see to move up in the competition.
6s to 7s. Cards of 48. Cassidy Cook in 3rd place after 4 dives. Had struggled with her first dive, has been better the next 3. 2 dives remaining.
Nice. That's a forward 2.5 with 1 twist. And there's one of her higher degree of difficulty dives. In fact, it's the highest one she's doing at 3.0. She hasn't been able to do all the dives that she has done in the past, all the difficult dives in the past. But this is one of them, and this will help Cassidy. She was in 3rd. There's Patrick Jeffrey, her coach at Stanford. It's her senior year. What a career she has had.
Pac-12 champion on 1 meter last year. Cassidy Cook, here's your leader, Eloise Belangi. She has led the entire way, a 14-point lead heading into her next to last dive here. She won the 1 meter for her first Pac-12 title, coming here in her junior year. Taking a long time, and Cynthia, it doesn't seem to hurt her.
No, I think she stands a lot longer going backwards than she does when she's doing a forward approach off the end of the springboard. But like I said, I think it serves her. I don't know that the judges don't get a little bit impatient. They can take off if they want to. But she's been leading the contest since round 1, and she's going to continue to do that. She has to watch 5 more people in the round, but she has a pretty good lead at this point.
Mara Ayaka-Bo of ASU struggled with her last couple of dives, in 8th place heading into her next to last.
It's a good dive. It's a low degree of difficulty dive. There's 7 judges. You mark out the 2 high, the 2 low, add up the 3 middle scores, and multiply times the degree of difficulty. In this case, 2.4 instead of a 2.8, 9, or 3.0. And that factor can make a big difference in whether you score over 60 points or not.
Scores in the 7, 7.5 range for Ayaka-Bo. Cards of 51.6. Haley Farnsworth of Stanford, a sophomore, in 7th place through 4 dives.
Very aesthetically pleasing. She has a nice compact position in the air. She's a pretty diver. And she goes way up in the air. That was the 5-meter platform that she was spinning up by. And she's off the 3-meter springboard, so she's going up 2 meters high.
6.5 to 7.5. Frida Karlgren, the ASU freshman, in 4th place through 4 dives. Trailed by about 32 points.
She's been quite steady, but she's just not vertical on every entry, and I think she'll pick up another point to 2 points on her dives when she starts hitting all of these entries. She seems to know where she is in the air pretty well, but her entries are not quite vertical.
Ashley McCool in 2nd place by 14 points, heading into her next to last dive.
Ashley has a great takeoff. She is so patient on the end of the springboard. She would need 10s to go ahead of Eloise Belanger at this point. She's not going to get 10s, but I think she will stay in 2nd place. This height above the springboard, the beautiful toe point, the extension in her legs, and the control that she has keep her right in 2nd.
Loses a little bit of ground to Belanger that round. Now 21 points behind with 1 dive left. Delaney Schnell, the last diver here in the 5th round, in 5th place. She was the top qualifier earlier today.
Good inward 2.5, not great. Delaney Schnell has the ability to go in the water without making any splash whatsoever. Any. But she's not doing it. Maybe nerves play a little part in this. She was the top qualifier, goes last in the competition.
And with 1 round remaining, Eloise Belanger of UCLA with the lead. Ashley McCool in 2nd, 21 points behind. Cassidy Cook in 3rd. And then Mia Paulson, Cook's Stanford teammate. Here is Mia Paulson in 4th place. Trailing it by a little more than 50 points. Great Stanford tradition. Her great-grandfather received the first electrical engineering PhD at Stanford. Her great-great-grandmother was in the Stanford class of 1900.
I don't think there were TVs yet, were there?
No, but you and I were doing the Pac-12 championship.
Yeah, I think we were. It's Mia Paulson's final dive. She was in 4th place after round 5. This is round 6. Needs a big dive. She leads off the order. Needs a big dive to even think about being in the top 3, but 4th would be just fine for this freshman. Oh, she misses the entry. She plays it conservatively on the end and leaves the dive shy of vertical. I think her twisting position is very pretty. She comes around and grabs her hands maybe a little prematurely instead of letting the dive rotate just a little bit more.
Between 5s and 6.5, score 49. Cassidy Cook in 3rd place. Her final dive on springboard in her Pac-12 career with the platform competition remaining.
Oh, very nicely done. Patrick Jeffrey, Olympian in his 4th year coaching at Stanford. And he's coached other places and been very successful, but he has a stable of great horses at Stanford, and he is doing a fabulous job. He's a wonderful guy to be around, very positive, of course, nose diving backwards and forwards.
Cassidy Cook, the 2016 U.S. Olympian, 13th on 3-meter in Rio. And now Eloise Belangi, the leader, has a lead by about 21 points over Ashley McCool. Belangi's final dive as she looks to win her 2nd springboard title of the meet.
I think if she were to receive 9s, she might break the record.
Record 387.75 set by Blythe Hartley of USC in 06.
Well, it's not going to happen. The dive wasn't bad at all, and it's probably going to be Eloise Belanger that is the winner in this contest. She's got 5 divers to follow her, but she misses this entry. It gets a little excited about grabbing her hands and goes right past vertical, ducks her head somewhat. Not the best last round dive that she could have done.
5.5s and 6s, cards of 51. Her final total 369.75, but it's 21 points, 18 points in fact behind the record Blythe Hartley set back in 06. Mara Ayakabo, last year's platform champion, in 8th place, heading into her final dive.
Mara is so steady most of the time. She missed 2 dives in the middle of the contest, which is uncharacteristic for her. Comes back and does a pretty good last round dive, but it's not going to help her get into the top 5, I don't believe. She was in 8th place going into the final round, and is a better platform diver actually than springboard.
Haley Farnsworth, 6th on 3-meter last year as a freshman. Here in her sophomore year, 7th heading into her final dive. Her dad Scott, a former pro surfer.
Very nice, back 1.5 with 2.5 twists. Every diver has to do a twisting dive in their repertoire in these 6 dives, and she chooses to do it last. Many divers want their best dive last, so that if they need to catch up or need extra points, it's a dive they can depend on.
She gets a 56. Her 6 dive total 306.5. Frida Karlgren of ASU in 5th place. Her final dive, biomedical engineering major at Arizona State.
very powerful, dynamic takeoff, very lively. You know, I really like her glorious springboard takeoffs. I think they are, that is something that you have a hard time teaching, and it takes a long time at times to teach that. And there's Mark Bradshaw, been at ASU for 21 years now.
He's focusing on Ashley McCool, who's in second place, needs about a 72 on this dive. Her final dive.
And she might go ahead. She needs 8s on this dive. That dive will, I think, receive at least 8, maybe above that. And she could win this contest right here. What a nice last round dive. She didn't falter. She didn't hesitate.
And she's going to fall just 2 points short. Her final total will be 367.95. 1.8 points short of Eloise Belanger. Delaney Schnell in 6th place heading into her final dive.
Beautiful, beautiful. Delaney Schnell missed the dive in the first round and then came back and did some gorgeous dives after that. It just wasn't enough. She couldn't catch up at that point. But she finishes with a beautiful dive, and it's one of her highest scoring dives.
Eloise Belanger won the 1-meter title, and now she wins the 3-meter title by 1.8 points over Ashley McCool. So it is Belanger and then McCool, and Cassidy Cook finishes in 3rd.